Is this the week that Caullin Lacy makes his Louisville debut? And what about the injury to starting running back Maurice Turner? We'll answer those questions and more on today's episode of Locked On Louisville.
You are Locked On Louisville, your daily podcast on the Louisville Cardinals. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Card Nation, what is going on, everyone? Welcome into this Tuesday edition of the Locked On Louisville podcast. As always, I'm your host, Dalton Pence. I want to take this time to thank you all for making us your first listen of the day. Just a reminder, Locked On Louisville, free and available on all streaming services 5 days a week, your team every day. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Place your first $5 bet and you'll get started with $200 in bonus bets guaranteed. All you had to do is visit FanDuel.com to get started. We're still recapping the Georgia Tech game, talking about what went right, what went wrong, but we'll also answer some key questions about Caullin Lacy's Louisville debut, his availability. What does the injury status look like for starting running back Maurice Turner? And how does the Cardinals defense bounce back from a lackluster overall performance against Georgia Tech? A lot of stuff to break down. Not a ton of time, but before we do that, I have to once again update you all on how the programming is going to be changing this week. I am in Tampa all week for a work conference. So just a heads up that the Tuesday episode and Thursday episode are both pre-recorded. If new information regarding injuries comes out on Monday, then obviously there won't be way to change what happens or what I happen to say in this recording, but just a heads up as to why there won't be more than just the 3 episodes this week. We will be back to our normal schedule when I get back to town Friday evening. So we'll recap Notre Dame and much, much more. And we'll preview the Notre Dame matchup on the Thursday episode of the show. But nonetheless, enough about the programming, more about the main questions that we have. The passing game on Saturday, I thought it showed me everything that I was looking for. Like, there were some new plays that obviously Louisville really hadn't shown their hand on. There was some creativity. Ja'Cory Brooks was fantastic. Chris Bell rose to the occasion. The tight ends got involved. Overall, Tyler Shuck was pretty solid. He didn't turn the ball over. He was 13 of 19 for 269 yards and 2 touchdowns. Like, he was really efficient. He didn't really force the issue too much. Like, yeah, he had a couple plays where it looked like he held onto the ball too long, but everybody's going to make a mistake every now and again. So wasn't really worried about the passing game. One thing I am wanting to know, is this finally the week that we see Caullin Lacy make his Cardinals debut? Don't forget, he had surgery on a broken collarbone towards the middle part of August that was going to sideline him 6 to 8 weeks was the time frame given by the football program. 6 weeks directly put him at that Notre Dame game. And collarbones can kind of be tricky, right? But there had been rumors, and if you listen to the episode that I had with Grant Mulligan last week, one of the buy-sell questions was whether or not Lacy was going to make his debut this week. And I mentioned to him that I had heard rumors from multiple people, none that I would consider to be traditional sources, but multiple that believed that he was going to play against Notre Dame. I didn't mention it on this show because I didn't want to be the one that you all pointed to when asked where you heard the information after you put it all over Twitter. Dalton Pence is saying Caullin Lacy's going to be back for Notre Dame. I didn't want that to even have the possibility of happening, so I wanted to just wait and see. Jeff Brom, in his weekly radio show at Roosters last week, mentioned that he was hopeful that Lacy would be making his debut against Notre Dame. And then he mentioned if that wasn't it, he was hopeful that he would be making the debut the week after, which is the SMU home game. On Saturday, there are video clips of Caullin Lacy working out pregame on the field, dressed, obviously not going to play, but he was dressed. I think that is encouraging and a good sign pointing toward his possible debut on Saturday. Now, don't get me wrong, whether or not he plays, I still think that the Cardinals have the ingredients in the skill positions to be able to succeed against a pretty solid Notre Dame defense. Ja'Cory Brooks is as good as advertised. He is. He's really, really good. And he's showing it every single week that it is really challenging to stay in front of him and defend him one-on-one. I also found it really encouraging that Chris Bell had the performance that he did. He had some big-time plays in this one, 2 for 82 and a touchdown. One of those was where he caught the ball over the middle, made the defender miss, and then had the easy walk-in touchdown. The other one was on it looked like a slant route to where Shuck threw the ball, and he was like a one-hand body catch that he was able to take upfield, and he made some big-time plays. Not to mention, Jamari Johnson had 2 catches. I think Mark Redmond gets more involved. Louisville really didn't throw the ball all that much. It was still more of a running game. But don't forget, some of those big-time plays were called back due to BS penalties. So that's something that you have to take into consideration. So I am completely satisfied with having Ja'Cory Brooks and Chris Bell for another week if you have to. If there is a chance that Caullin Lacy can be available for this game, I think it opens up the floodgates in terms of possibility. And don't get me wrong, I'm not saying that Ja'Cory Brooks and Chris Bell are not explosive receivers. But there is a reason that Caullin Lacy was one of the best receivers in the country last year in creating missed tackles, one of the best yards after catch receivers. I know you take the level of competition into consideration, but Lacy playing in the slot, I think he's an immediate upgrade in the slot. He gives you that explosiveness that you're looking for that can completely change the dynamic of the game. People talk about, well, when are we going to see a Jeff Brom-esque offense? Last year, the issue was they didn't really have the tight end play, and the explosiveness at receiver wasn't all the way there. Quarterback play kind of struggled too, right? Now you have the tight end play. Now you have upgrades at the skill positions, and you have a better quarterback. But one overlooked yet critical aspect is you need that speed and explosiveness, especially in the slot. And Caullin Lacy gives you just that. So I don't have to really get on this show and explain to you how incredibly beneficial it would be for the Cardinals to have Lacy on Saturday against Notre Dame. I'm not sure what it is in terms of like the recurring problem with like a collarbone. So I'm not sure if there's any risk of re-injury. If there is, maybe Lacy's on a snap count. Maybe he's only going to play, in certain series. I don't know. But just getting him on the field, whether you get him the ball or not, just his presence will force Notre Dame to adapt defensively. Like Notre Dame, knowing that they have to game plan for Caullin Lacy is going to help everyone else. And this is definitely going to help a rushing attack that struggled mightily against a Georgia Tech team that I didn't really perceive as being a great defensive or a great rush defense. But more on that here in a second. And if he is not able to play, if he's not able to go on Saturday against the Fighting Irish, then it's more business as usual. You rely on Ja'Cory Brooks to win you those one-on-one battles, even if they're downfield. Chris Bell to be more involved, the tight ends, Amari Huggins-Bruce to continue to get worked back into the rotation. But I think that it's pretty interesting that we're hearing all these rumors. We're hearing about Jeff Brom's comments about how he's hopeful that he's going to be back this week. And we saw Caullin Lacy work out pregame on the field dressed. It feels like all signs, I don't want to put the cart before the horse here, but it feels like all signs are pointing to the South Alabama star wide receiver transfer making his Cardinal debut at the very least against SMU. Personally, for me, if you're making me make a prediction, I think we see Caullin Lacy back this week, y'all. I do. Louisville's 3-0. Caullin Lacy's back. He's going to give a big boost to this Louisville passing attack that I think has the potential to be really, really good. And I had a lot of high hopes for the rushing attack as well. The performance on Saturday made me question that a little bit. Injury to Maurice Turner has made me question that a little bit. We'll break it down more coming up on the next segment of Locked On Louisville. Cardinal fans, if you've been listening to the show, you know that I've been really advocating for 5-hour energy. It is a busy time of year. I've started a new job. I have a puppy who keeps me attentive 25 hours a day, 8 days a week. It's kind of been a little challenging. So by the time I get to the middle of the day, I crash. And it seems like I'm not the only one. According to studies, 70% of people crash around lunchtime. 5-hour energy takes that issue away. It allows you to stay alert, to get through the day, watch all your favorite games in the evening time, and much, much more. It gives you that feeling of alertness and energy you need to get in the zone. With zero sugar and a convenient portable size, it's the perfect pick-me-up for getting stuff done. The 5-hour energy website has flavors galore: tropical burst, grape, watermelon, berry, you name it. If you go to the site, you even have the option to build your own 12 or 24 pack. You choose the flavors and it's delivered right to your door. Go to 5hourenergy.com today. That's the number 5, followed by ourenergy.com, and get some 5-hour energy product today. You can use my promo code LOCKEDONCFB, all one word, to receive 20% off your order. Just a reminder, the offer is only valid until September 30th on one order and cannot be used with other promotions. The code is not good on subscription orders. So do yourself a favor, take advantage by going to 5hourenergy.com today. Hey, Cardinal fans, thanks again for making Locked On Louisville your first listen of the day. Just a reminder, Locked On Louisville free and available on all streaming services 5 days a week. Your team every day. Over the past year and first 3 games of this season, we've seen the importance of Louisville establishing the ground game as a ways to open up the pass. And I think that maybe that changes a little bit this year when you have a quarterback that could throw it the way Tyler Shuck does. But through the first 3 games, it's been very key. Louisville's really tried to establish themselves throughout the opening parts of games at the line of scrimmage. And I know sack yardage is featured into this total. But when you look at the Cardinals rushing 24 times on Saturday for 63 yards and no touchdowns, you get a little bit concerned, because I'll be honest, Georgia Tech wasn't really they weren't doing a bad job at it, but I didn't really take the Ramblin' Wreck as a team that was going to be a lockdown rushing defense. Now, they might be one of the better rushing defenses in the not the continent or the country, the conference. Sorry, I can't speak. But this is a Louisville offense that, if it was just a running back issue, I think it would be different. But Louisville really struggled in run scheme. Offensive line wasn't able to create many holes. The faster defensive ends were able to create a little bit more havoc than I was wanting to see. And the Cardinals really weren't able to break off many runs at all. The longest rush that the Cardinals had on Saturday night or Saturday afternoon was Tyler Shuck. He had a 9-yard scamper. That was it. Isaac Brown, 3 for 7. Kewan Brown, 5 for 10. Don Chaney Jr., 10 for 23. Long of 7 for Isaac and Don. Duke Watson, 2 for 4. It was one of the more lackluster rushing performances that I had seen from a Louisville Jet Brom team in his short time here in the Derby City as the head coach. What makes things a little bit more challenging is that we got word on Saturday of Maurice Turner having an ankle injury, in which speculation soared on Saturday. It was rumored to be a high ankle sprain, And there was talks, I believe, on national network that he had surgery on it. I know that was a rumor that was swirling. And even it got to the point where now this isn't my words. This is a rumor. There are rumors out there right now that believe that Maurice Turner is out for the remainder of the season. Just completely putting that out there. There are rumors that suggest that. Now, we're not going to speak to the validity of that. I'm not sure if that's the truth. I really hope that's not the truth. But if it is a high ankle sprain, we know how challenging those can be. And there's only, 11 weeks left in the regular season? Well, no, you have 9 games left, so you have the bye week. So there's 10 weeks overall remaining in the regular season. And a high ankle sprain could sideline you for easily half of that. That's how weird those injuries can be. Again, I don't know the full status. Jeff Braun was asked about injuries. He said that Maurice was injured, but he didn't want to really, speculate on the return time. So I think it's going to be one of those, truthfully, how well does that ankle respond to treatment? That's what it's going to come down to. But he wasn't good enough to go against Georgia Tech. Until I hear something else, I'm not sure when he's going to be available again. Hopefully it's soon. Again, we're not going to speculate on how long he's going to be out, only that Maurice Turner is injured. And that takes away a big aspect of this team or this rushing attack, because Turner is a really agile back that's able to get to that second level of the defense and be able to make those cuts at the line of scrimmage and get through the hole. He's really underrated at running in between the tackles, but I think he's one of the better running backs on the team when it comes to getting outside and making something happen. Now, you do have speed. You have Duke Watson. You have Isaac Brown. Don Chaney Jr. and Kewan Brown are more power backs, but they do have an underrated amount of speed as well. And it goes to show you, Duke Watson playing in this game, it feels like one of the rumors was that they're going to burn Duke Watson's red shirt. He's going to play more than 4 games. If that is the case, then maybe that does lead you to believe that you're going to have Maurice Turner out for an extended amount of time. I don't know. What I do know is that Louisville has the pieces in that room to be really successful. Losing Maurice Turner is a key loss. I know some think that he's not one of the better running backs on the team. I think that he, pound for pound, was going to be the leading rusher. It doesn't seem like that right now. So regardless, you need Don Chaney, number one, to stay healthy. He's had some injury history in the past. He has to stay healthy, and he has to be that go-to guy. Kewan Brown has to take that next step forward in his second season. And then the true freshman, Isaac Brown, has to continue to put that explosiveness on full display, and you have to get some productive production from Duke Watson as well. But one thing is for certain, the running backs won't be successful if the protection was what it was on Saturday. Protecting the run scheme, Louisville's offensive line did not do a good job. The interior wasn't able to create many holes. The tackles weren't able to seal off the edge. That was one of the main concerns that I had talking about this offensive line in the season, is that, yes, they're quick enough and they have the finesse to be able to be really good in pass pro. But it's still to be determined as to whether or not that they can set the tone at the line of scrimmage and be bulldozers and create those holes running the football. They did it the first couple weeks because they could. They went up against the Georgia Tech defensive line that it's like, okay, well, this isn't going to be one of the better defensive lines you play all season. You're going to play an upgraded defensive line literally in a week. Notre Dame coming to town, or not coming to town. You're going to Notre Dame. First road game of the season. You have to fight those, those nerves off. And you have to play a better team. So not only do you have to see others step up and the Louisville running backs to be able to find the right holes, the offensive linemen have to create those holes. Like, the holes have to be there for the running backs to go through. And that just wasn't really the case on Saturday. You have to, look to the coaching staff to get creative on how you're going to sort of scheme around that to give Louisville the best opportunity. Maybe it is throwing the ball more to really open it up and then allowing yourself to run the football. That's still to be determined on how that's going to work. But one thing that has to improve is the rushing attack. Another thing that has to improve are the defensive lapses. Too many times in that Georgia Tech game did the defense have some plays where it's like, oh no, if you just executed on that play, the outcome would be so much different. But instead, big yardage plays and a mobile quarterback hurt the Louisville defense, which unfortunately has been a recurring issue since last season. We'll break it down on the next episode of, on the next segment of Locked On Louisville. Hey, NFL fans, you can start the season with a huge return on FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. When you get a hunch in the middle of the game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. You go to FanDuel.com right now. Look at all the odds. Louisville is under 7-point underdog. It's close to being a toss-up. Louisville is an underdog for the first time of the season. You can take advantage of those props on FanDuel.com. You'll get started with $200 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place your first $5 bet. That's when you visit America's #1 sportsbook, FanDuel.com. Into the final segment of this Tuesday edition of the Locked On Louisville podcast, continuing to discuss some of the struggles from Georgia Tech, areas of improvement that are needed to be shown as we move along, especially this week against Notre Dame. I was really wanting to see how the defense game planned for Georgia Tech, because we know how Haynes King operates. He can throw the football, but he's at his most dangerous when you ask him to improvise in the RPO game. And unfortunately, it wasn't the greatest. He had 14 carries for 58 yards, 1 touchdown, 26 was his longest carry. He had that 23-yard touchdown, I think at the start of the game, if I'm not mistaken, or 26 yards, one of the two. But sack yardage also featured into that. He had technically more than 58 yards. Can we stop factoring in sack yardage to a rushing total? Like, it completely skews the overall statistics. Like, NFL doesn't do it. Why does college do it? It really makes absolutely no sense. Like, we have to get rid of that. Rant over. Louisville had 2 weeks to prepare for Haynes King. They had 2 weeks to prepare for Georgia Tech hunting those big-time plays. And let's point it. A couple of those plays, sometimes the defensive back just gets beat. Like, there was one play Quincy Riley got beat like right after he got hurt forcing that fumble. That was the scoop and score for the Cardinals. The next play, Georgia Tech threw that bomb down the sideline that Quincy was obviously still hurt on. And they took advantage of it. Haynes King made a beautiful throw. He made a couple of beautiful throws, and that's one of those where you just tip your hat and do what you do, and you get back to what you have to do. Speaking of Quincy Riley, Jeff Brom did mention that he believes that Riley should be fine. Quincy Riley's mom, Kelly Green, happy belated birthday to Miss Kelly. She even mentioned that he's going to be fine, thankfully. Just kind of going through football as a physical violent sport. So unfortunately sustained a couple of knocks along the way, but thankfully it doesn't seem like it's a long-term issue. But Georgia Tech made some plays, but at other points it looked like Louisville was just not prepared for the RPO. And I know that it's a very intricate RPO that features Haynes King running it, and he's a very competent runner. Jamal Haynes is a good running back. And then you had the wide receiver sort of coming in on the fake end around it. So it was almost like a triple read option where you could do so many different things. And it felt like Louisville just really never – there were a couple plays that felt like they got better in the second half here and there, but Georgia Tech continually got drives extended. Like, the issues last season proved to be issues this season. Georgia Tech hadn't allowed a sack all season coming into the game, right? Louisville did not have one on Saturday. And a lot of that is Haynes King throwing the ball quickly. But I want to know one thing. Like, I know Ashton Gelati playing on the interior helped with the rushing defense. Like, Jamal Haynes did not really have a good game. He was 12 for 25 and a touchdown. The one touchdown was on a 1-yard run. Like, Georgia Tech averaged 2.6 yards per carry. So it's not like they completely gashed the Cardinals. They had 98 yards on the ground. But the secondary struggled, and a lot of that was because Louisville's pass rush didn't get home. I want to know why was Ashton Gelati more often than not put on the interior and not on the exterior where he can bring his most valuable trait on the field to life, that is being a great pass rusher. Louisville really wasn't able to get much pressure home against Haynes King, and it put the secondary in a vulnerable state, and overall the secondary didn't make some key plays. Like, guys were just running in the middle. I'm at the point now where it feels like I've watched a ton of zone defense for the Cardinals just really not work. Like, the pass rush doesn't get there, and guys are just finding the pockets of space and turning around. It feels like, I mean, I'm not comparing Ron English to Scott Satterfield's defense, but it feels like you're never safe, even in third and long, unless Louisville pins their ears back and rushes the passer. Because if you don't get home and you don't speed up that quarterback clock, they're able to step into the read and throw and find someone who literally just turns around in space. Like, I would love to see Louisville just go to man-to-man. If you get, because here's the thing about this, you have Quincy Riley, you have, Tamari McDonald, MJ Griffin, these linebackers that you have come back, TJ Quinn, Stanquan Clark, Taz Nicholson, Corey Thornton, Tay Holloway. Like, you have really talented players in the secondary. Why not? I mean, I know you're going up against an explosive Georgia Tech offense, but why not go man-to-man when you saw that the zone defense wasn't working? Like, Georgia Tech, Haynes King threw for 312 yards. He doesn't throw for over 300 yards often. He doesn't. A lot of it is rushing the pass, right? Or rushing as a quarterback. So not always did Haynes King succeed at getting out and rushing the football. Louisville made some really key stops on fourth and short, where Haynes King decided to keep it for himself, and Louisville stood them up and got the ball. So there is credit to be deserved there. But the same issues that we saw last season, the secondary just completely getting gashed at times, and it shouldn't be. It shouldn't be. You have the players on this defense, and I'm a podcast host. I'm not on the field calling these plays. It just feels like, you look at the last drive of the first half. You had them basically about to set up for a field goal. You don't really rush everyone. You drop the majority of the players, and there was still a wide receiver that got behind the defense. Put it this way. If he didn't have to wait for the ball to find him in the air, he probably can crab walk to the end zone once he catches it. He was wide open. And I know that miscommunication happens on defense, but this has been a recurring issue. You're going up here in a couple weeks. You're going to have to play Miami. I know people talk about SMU not being a great team. That offense is tailored to throwing the football. You have to be better in coverage. Because what we saw Saturday against Georgia Tech, I know they only scored 17 points on offense. They knocked on the door far more often than that. Like, the defense just has to be better. And I think a lot of that is switching of the pass rush a little bit and playing more man defense. That's at least my opinion. Maybe you have a different opinion. Maybe the coaching staff has a different opinion. That's okay. That's why they don't get their opinions and coaching advice from Dalton Pence, host of the Locked On Louisville podcast. But again, it's just all about improving. So I'm not worried yet. It's just something that has to get better. That is going to wrap up this Tuesday edition of the show. No episode tomorrow. We'll be back Thursday to give you the Notre Dame preview. What's at stake, keys to victory, players to watch, and more. Won't be a Friday edition. Again, that was Sunday night. Tuesday, Thursday. I'm out of town pretty much the whole week. These are pre-recorded episodes. Will be business as usual beginning next week. Everyone have a great day. We'll see you right back here